Okay,
So you agree that we should seize the means of production?
we are, I promised you before, we're going to spend some more time talking about the Federal Reserve. Okay?
Okay.
Who in here, in their, we got 3 different countries represented here. Whose country has a central bank?
North Korea.
Everybody. Everybody can raise your hand.
Everybody.
China has a central bank, South Korea has a central bank, America has a, now, whether it's a good idea or not, every advanced economy in the world has a central bank. And we're gonna, so these principles, you're gonna find some variations, but a lot of this will be similar in China, South Korea, America, about how the central bank would work. You know, not all the details, but some of the principles. Oh, why? Because what type of currency do all of our countries have?
Fiat.
Fiat. So the government, the Federal Reserve, can just say, oh, let there be more money. It's like magic. We just, boop, more money. It actually sounds like that on the computer. It makes that noise. Okay? So, the circular flow diagram has money flowing through it. The Federal Reserve, that's the name of our central bank, can pull money out or put it in. That's what we're talking about. This guy, how it works. Okay? That is the beast right there. That's the central enemy for libertarians, Austrians, anarcho-capitalists. If you ever see somebody with a t-shirt, audit the Fed, that's what they're talking about. Probably haven't. But in college you might. You might. They're the opposite of the people with the Che Guevara shirts. Okay. So, your first page is nothing but study guide. I tell you exactly what you need to know on the test. It's exceedingly detailed. It's practically the test, okay? Turn those bullets into questions, throw some multiple, give the right answer, and throw in some false answers, and you got the test, okay? No surprise. I may not even have this on the objective list because on the packet of objectives, you may not have number 10 because it's included there. It's just so detailed. Cool?
Thank you,
It
Mr.
is-
Rhodes.
Oh, no, I did give it. Okay, so you got it twice. Can't miss. Okay.
Yeah.
Starting out, we got 3 creators of money, the Treasury mints coins, the financial markets actually. We're going to see how this works. They create money. These guys, banks, create money by loaning out their people's deposits. More on that later. We'll see how this works. Okay. The Fed, however, creates the majority of the money in the country. We're going to start section 1 by talking about the organization of the Fed. And we'll first start, if you look on page 149, I think. Turn your book to page 149. Everybody's got the book, right? Right?
What's a book?
All right, this is on the web. I know the names of all the people who didn't bring their book. Okay, so, am I right? Page 149? I rock. Okay,
Did you just say I rock?
so look here, y'all. You get a map. By the way, you have read. You've been assigned 140. Look at that. Look at all that you've been assigned. Okay?
Yeah.
Good. All that learning. Doesn't that make you feel smart? Okay.
Knowledge.
Page 149 has a map. And what is this a map of? It's the district banks the Fed is broken into. Okay? So, where, by the way, you see the lime green for 6, the southeast? Anybody want to guess which city has the central bank for that section?
Atlanta.
Hotlanta,
Sounds right.
because we're awesome. Okay, thank you, Danny. It says so right there on the page. Well, I knew it even without looking. Okay, so I'm the teacher.
Oh.
So, each district gets their own bank. Why? Okay, here's the theory. Thank you, ma'am. The Fed came into being in 1913 during the Progressive era, and back then the country was a country of sharp contrasts. Okay, and so with all of these different types of economies, the Congress realized without the regional diversity that was there, they didn't want any region to be at the financial mercy of another. At least that's the theory. And by the way, whom did a lot of people out west and out in the countryside, the farmers, whom did they think they were at the mercy of? What region? Look at the districts and see which district you think they were at the mercy of. Which district, which state has its own district? New York, right? They felt like we're at the mercy of New York. Now, by the way, we talked about this in U.S. history. Is it a lot of power to decide who gets loans?
Yeah.
Yeah. Has a lot of power. And because it was informal, and it was the, quote, robber barons who had the power, or they talk about robbers, they said, we're going to, this is kind of what Senator Sanders was about, okay? He said they wanted what type of socialism? Democratic socialism. So he says it's okay that we're doing it because we get to vote on this stuff. And so they said, we're going to have the people get to vote, to have some control over who gets loans. Y'all with me? See the theory. Now, obviously, I'm not going to agree with all this, but you get the ideas behind it. Okay? So they created 12 district banks, each to perform the needed functions for their districts. Okay? To provide the money that they needed. It ended up not exactly working out the way they'd hoped, but you got the idea. Okay? This was part of the progressive movement trying to have democracy take over the power of the robber barons. The way it would work, you get supervision of each bank. This is a little bit more democracy. They said we'd have bankers. Obviously, bankers know what's going on. They know banking. And then you got business people who rely on the banks. You get three bankers, 3 non-banking business people, and then 3 just representatives of the public to try to say, this is what we represent the people, this is what the people need when it comes to banking. Okay? Now, obviously, the Austrians would say this is tyranny because you've got government, people via the government controlling things. And again, is democracy a guarantee of justice?
No.
No. What is lynching?
Democracy.
Lynching is democracy. Okay? The people voted. Okay? So that's the theory, but I'm not, remember, the founders necessarily a fan of democracy? Do people get to vote on whether you get rights or not? In democracy, they do. But can the people take away your rights? Remember what Jefferson said. Liberty is not going to survive when people forget that where do your rights come from? God. Do your rights come from other people?
No.
No. Okay. So anyway, don't need to get too much in the weeds on that. Do you see the theory behind why they created these different district banks? So they have a bank for each region, so they got a bank that can give them money for their type of economy, and they're not dependent on those New York City bankers. Yeah, good luck with that. Remember we talked about regulatory capture when we talked about the government trying to regulate pollution? Regulatory capture? Talk about regulatory capture. Every time the government tries to create some way of controlling Wall Street, guess what ends up happening? They end up co-opting it. Okay, they find ways around. It's really funny on NPR. I was listening to, they're talking about when they created, I think it was Dodd-Frank, when they came up with these new rules about how Wall Street was going to work. That's really complicated. And then they had a meeting and they said, hey, anybody got any ideas how we ought to run this? And they were talking to the people who run Wall Street, and there was a moment of awkward silence. While guys were like, and then finally the guy said, well, I've got some ideas, and everybody else, because the experts about how the financial markets run, where are they? They're not in government. So they're in Wall Street, and so Wall Street had a lot of input about how this stuff was going to work. It's really hard to get completely away with these guys, away from these guys having input. Remember, Wall Street gave more to the Democratic Party than it did the Republican Party. I think often what they'll try to do, they'll give to both parties. And often they'll probably give more to whoever they think is going to win. Okay, well, got a little too much in the weeds on that. Let's move on to Board of Governors. Board of Governors has 7 members, each picked by the President and confirmed by
Congress.
who in Congress, do you think? What part of Congress?
Representative? House of Representatives.
Senate,
Who confirms stuff?
the Senate.
The Senate. Just like all the, just like the Supreme Court. This kind of has some parallels with the Supreme Court. No 2 members will come from the same district, so we try to spread out the representation. 1 vacancy pops up every 2 years, so you can't Remember what FDR tried to do with the Supreme Court? Pack the court with people who backed his plans? You can't pack the Fed because you only get one vacancy every 2 years, the longest president. So if people stay in their whole time, their whole terms, the longest president could do would fill in 4 people. Okay? And how long are your appointments? 14 years, and you don't go for reappointment, you just get 14 years. Now think about this. Why would they give people running this thing 14 years in office? Go back to the Supreme Court. How long is your time in the Supreme Court? Okay, how long does your appointment for the Supreme Court last? Life. Why? Why do they give you lifetime appointment at the Supreme Court?
Because eventually you just get good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
it.
you don't want to say things.
Trial and error.
You get reelected.
Yes. Do you, okay, remember what we wanted with the Supreme Court? We wanted it detached from what the people want, right? So you don't want the Supreme Court worrying too much about public opinion and getting reappointed. We want them just supposedly thinking just about justice. Do we want the Fed trying to make the people happy with its decisions? What would make the people happy? The Fed, yeah, more money. Giant helicopter o' cash. Go with a giant copter o' cash, sprinkle money about the people, and they're happy for now, right? What would happen if we did that? People have lots of money, they go buy stuff, the economy's booming, right? But what happens eventually? You're creating a
Bubble.
and what do bubbles do?
Pop.
And then what do the people want? Another bubble to replace the last bubble. Okay? So what we want, remember this, do we want this type of growth?
Get rid of money.
No. Remember I talked about before, China has actually wanted to slow down their economy. They said, we're growing too much, we're going to have a bubble. So they're going to bring it down to like 6% instead of, 10%. Okay? So what we want is not this, we want this. So the Fed is supposed to, okay, I'm not saying I agree with all this, I'm trying to give you the theory behind this. The Fed's job is supposed to be to try to see this type of growth, keep money in towards stable, steady growth. The people will demand, right? But that goes wrong. So you want 14 years, so the guy doesn't have to worry about, or gal, by the way, doesn't have to worry about reappointment. By the way, who is the chair now of the Fed? The first female chair, Janet Yellen. And she can melt metal with her brain. I've seen that. She's that smart. Okay. What are the responsibilities of the Fed, of the Board of Governors? First, what does that mean? Set the required reserve ratio. When I talked about banking last week, remember when I was a silversmith who became, or a goldsmith who became a bank? What is the reserves when it comes to banking? What does that mean? Raise your hand if you can tell me, what do I mean by reserves?
What you have stocked up.
Yeah, what you have stuck. How do banks make money? They loan people's deposits, right? So what is the temptation to do? The only way you make money is by loaning out and getting paid back. So what's your temptation?
Loan everything.
Loan a lot out, okay? What is the problem with if you loan out too much?
Then if people want some of their deposits back, you can't give it to them.
Yeah, and what can that lead to?
Depression.
It's a wonderful life.
What happens when people get, what's that feeling they have?
Fear.
Panic.
Panic, and it spreads. And what do people do to the bank? Do they walk to the bank?
Yeah.
No.
What do we have? We have a
Depression.
eventually. Okay. Wait for a second. They have a run on the bank. So what do we? And when we're loaning out too much money, you create a bubble. Okay. So so the government is going to set to try to, and okay, then when the bubble pops, then what do you have?
Depression.
Depression.
First
There
you
you
have
go.
a
Okay.
recession.
So a really bad recession was a depression. Okay. So the government said because banks have such an impact on everybody's lives, we're going to regulate it. And the Board of Governors says for all banks, this is the ratio of reserves, how much you keep to how much you loan out, that we're going to require. Hence, required reserve ratio. Does that make sense? Can you dig it? Okay. They also and regulate commercial banks and federal district banks and administer financial consumer protection laws. And recently we've created a whole other entity to do that. Like when it comes to all the rules about credit cards, how they operate, what information they get to give you, even like the format when you get a credit card bill. There's actually some positive stuff. I mean, maybe the free market would do better, but I kind of like, some of this you can actually say it's a good idea. They like having big print, okay, you know, like how, what, kind of like when you're buying food and they've got the calories and stuff. I actually like that. You know, I go to McDonald's, I can tell what the calories are and stuff like that. They're going to tell you what your interest rate is, and if you borrow this money for this amount of time, how much you're going to pay off. And so the government's saying we're trying to keep the people informed. Now, if the government completely stayed out, the free market did it and handled it, would do a better job. We're not going to get into that right now, but that's the idea. Trying to keep people from being taken advantage of. Oh, I'm open to the idea that maybe there's a role for the government. But the idea is trying to protect the people from getting taken advantage of by by the way, I'm not a fan of credit card companies. I'm not a fan. Okay, credit cards are evil. Evil. Okay, you know what? But I'm going to teach you. You know how you can get the credit card companies? You know how you get them? Not Fight Club. Don't blow up the credit card companies. Don't do that. Fight Club? Y'all know the movie Fight Club? There we go. Okay, don't do that. Blow up the credit card. Instead, it's more subtle. Pay off your credit card bill every month. Bam. Because then, you know how much interest they get from you? Nothing. They've got nothing from me for decades. And I use them, and I get all this money back. Stick it to the man, right?
You blew his mind.
Right, Danny? Rage Against the Machine, Danny. We're together in this. Fight the capitalist pig, dog, fat cats. Half pig, half dog, half cat. Okay, so, where was I? Got a little carried away with credit cards. Okay, so, the next part of the Fed is the FOMC. Actually, nobody calls it the FOMC. It's the FOMC. Federal
Let's go with the phone.
Open Market. What do you do in a market? You buy and sell. Open Market Committee, the Federal Open Market Committee. That's very important. What do they do? Their role, they affect the money supply. What does that mean by the money supply? What does that mean? How much money's out there? So you got this money flowing around, how much do you have? Well, the Federal Open Market Committee can do fine-tuning of this by buying and selling, they call it government securities bonds. Okay, what's a bond? Does anybody, like the grandparents got them a government bond or something like that? You know what I'm talking about? A bond is an IOU. What is IOU? I owe you money. So when the government sells a bond, let's say you give the government $450, the government gives you a piece of paper saying we will pay you $500 at a certain date. You with me? So when we buy and sell government bonds, when the government buys bonds back, it gives out money. When the government sells bonds, it pulls in money. And it uses that, don't worry about that if that kind of threw you up. We'll talk about it in more detail later, but it uses that to control how much fine-tuning of how much money's out there. Okay, Federal Open Market Committee. It's composed of 12 members. It's got the board on there, and then 5 of those district banks that we saw on that map. And then it's got an account manager. Okay, let's move on. This is where it gets really interesting. You're like, wait, what? Can it be more interesting than the Federal Open Market Committee? Yes, it can. The independence of the Fed. Okay. Why is the Fed independent? We're talking about this. Again, it's kind of like the Supreme Court. Remember the Supreme Court? You want the Supreme Court independent of the democratically elected branches, but not too independent. You want it independent so it can bring about justice, supposedly. Okay? Because the people are not guaranteed to give you justice. Because the people are driven by their passions. But you don't want it too independent because then the Supreme Court becomes an oligarchy. So we try to get that balance. Same with the Fed. Why do you want it independent? Congress believed the central bank was necessary, but they wanted it independent because What would happen if a politician could control the Fed? What would the politician tell the Fed to do? Pump a bunch of money into the economy. Because then, I'm sure I'm going to get reelected. Because if you take your Coptero cash and sprinkle money about the populace, right? There's not a little helicopter of cash, but that's the metaphor. You throw money out there, people will take the money, go buy stuff. When they buy stuff, people have jobs. They can buy stuff. Yay, party times, right? The economy's booming. Booming long enough for me to get reelected, then it collapses, but I'm already in. You with me? Do you want politicians controlling the money supply? No, not even progressives wanted that. Okay? The Austrians would argue, just leave it up to the banks, but at least if we're going to have somebody control it, let's not have it be democracy. Okay. So how is it independent? Do you understand why? Does everybody get why you want the Fed independent from the democratically elected politicians? Okay. How did they make it independent? First, since only one member of the Board of Governors gets replaced every 2 years, the president can't fill the board with his people. Remember packing the court, what FDR tried to do with the Supreme Court? Put a bunch of people that back up his plans? Can't do that because we only get one open every 2 years. It's also financially independent. Remember, what's the main power Congress has over the executive branch? How did Congress destroy South Vietnam? Anybody remember that? We had promised South Vietnam, we'll be there for you. South Vietnam had picked up a bunch of the fighting, but what did we promise them we'd do? We would give them logistical support. Because South Vietnam wasn't fighting the North by themselves. The North had other communist countries backing them up. So we said, we will give you air support, we will give you ammunition, logistics, but then what did Congress do? After Watergate, enemies of Nixon took over, and they said, no more money for you, because they have power of the purse. That's a lot of power. And it's supposed to be that way. But Congress can't do that to the Fed, because it's got its own money, right? Why do you have to do what your parents tell you? Well, you do it mainly because you love them, and you know they love you, and you respect authority, but also they pay the bills, right? Once you're paying your own bills, you can call the shots. The Fed has its own source of money. It charges fees for what it does, and it gets interest from bonds, from securities. So they don't need any money from Congress, so they don't have to listen to Congress. Also, nobody can tell the Fed what to do. They can't even look at the Fed's books. Again, that's why Austrians will wear shirts that say, audit the Fed. Okay? So that's a lot of independence. But there are checks on the independence. Members of the board could be replaced for cause, which Congress can define any way they want. And how did the Fed come into being, y'all? Is the Federal Reserve listed in the Constitution? We got an article for the legislature, an article for the executive, an article for the judiciary. Is there an article for the Fed? Is there a clause for the Fed? No. Congress created the Fed with a law. So what could Congress do? Congress should make another law saying no more Fed. Boom, it's gone. Now is that going to happen? Probably not. Probably not, because who knows what would happen then. Even if you don't like the Fed, you would probably say, well, we have to be really kind of careful making a change like that. But it could if they want to just abolish it. Okay, let's talk about functions of it. We already finished section 1. Isn't that awesome? Section 1's done. Let's talk about functions. What does the Fed do? First, it provides a uniform and elastic currency. What's elastic mean? It can, if the economy grows, the money supply can grow. If the economy shrinks or it's growing too fast, you can contract it like a rubber band, right? So it says in the notes, I say money supply that can be expanded as the economy grows, you say, or also contract. But if you're going to have the money supply where you can control it, then you need everybody to have the same money. What's that called? That's uniform. Same everywhere. Okay? So what they had to do is say, there's one currency everybody has and one source for it. Not a whole bunch of different banks that we couldn't control. One bank creating money so we can turn the spigot on or off. You with me? We can expand it or we can contract it. Okay. Also, the Fed regulates member banks. This section really isn't saying how it regulates member banks. It's saying how we came up with everybody following the same reserve requirement. Originally, members of the Fed, well, still members of the Fed, follow a certain reserve requirement. But banks, do they like having a high reserve requirement? What do they want to do? Loan out money. And they want to loan out more money. So if you had to have a reserve requirement, but nobody else did, you were at a disadvantage. So banks were fleeing the Fed. So the Fed finally said, look, everybody, even people who aren't members of the Fed, have to follow the same reserve requirement. Okay, see, I'll let you know when the bell's ring. That's the bell. Okay, have a good day. I gotta turn off my notes. I gotta turn off my
I'll turn it off for you.
subscribe!